Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, I'm the commander of the Netherlands Armed Forces Cyber Command, and my task is to support the armed forces with cyber capabilities. And what that is, I will explain later. But what I won't talk about is ransomware. I won't talk about cybercrime. I won't talk about intelligence. I will just talk about what does it mean when we transform from a conventional armed forces to a digitized organization. So this one doesn't work. That's great. I checked it before, so I don't know who did that, but I will walk. So I won't talk about this. I normally have a quite accurate new presentation, but I won't talk about this neither. Petja, but it keeps us busy. It keeps us busy. I will talk about this. Going from a conventional army, armed forces, to become a digitized soldier, to become cyber warriors. And we started the preparation of this presentation already 2 weeks ago by asking you if you have any questions for me. And some people sent in their questions, and one guy won a ticket for today. I don't know where he is. Is he around? Right. So, you are the first one to ask a question.
Well, the question was and is, do you think there will ever be a cyber world war? Secondly, who are the parties involved in that? And thirdly, who's going to win it?
Right. So, will there ever be a cyber world war? Who thinks there will be? There is already. Okay, I will come back to that. Yeah, throw it. I'm not good at football. Neither on soccer. So, which parties will be involved? Around 100 countries at this stage do develop cyber capabilities, in more or less. So I think, and I don't know whether the number of hundreds is correct, but a lot do. So I think there can be a number of countries involved. Is that a pure cyber? Will there be a pure cyber war? I doubt. I think that in a conflict, in any conflict between states, it will continue to be states applying power, state power, which is diplomatic, which is informational, and there it changed, which is military, and which is economical. So basically, it is the whole construct, and it moves from one to the other side. And who will win? I really don't know. I hope we will win. But I will come back to this, and I hope that during my presentation I will give you some more insights. If you do have any questions during my speech, please address them right away. Show your hand and shout. Because I don't have to get to the end of my slides, I just want to answer your questions. So this is the world we live in. Our basic needs nowadays in this completely digitized world are internet, is Wi-Fi, is being connected. Who has less than 2 devices with him right now? It is not that much people. Who has no devices with him? None. Okay. So we're all completely digitized, and we all completely depend on that little device. And we also expect that what is showed on that device is true. And that we are free to use that device. So we're completely depending on it. But there are two more needs which are interesting. That is survival and that is safety. And we are for safety. That's what the military are for. We protect what you care for. And if we don't, who does it? So, when we look into history, we see that originally people lived in small shelters. No protection at all. And you can compare that to single computers, standalone computers. No protection around. And no connections. Or very bad connections. Later on, we started with antivirus. And we had some computers in a basic network. And developing that, we built firewalls. And we had computers within one area. Intrusion detection systems. So that is like the Middle Ages, where we had these fortifications. And then it becomes military, really, because in the First World War, we had the real Magnolini line and the Siegfried line. Strongholds where it was thought that the enemy could not pass at all. And some companies thought some years ago that if you have a good defense in your networks and you shut yourself down from the outside, that you're not vulnerable. Nobody can come in. In the Cold War, we had what we called defense in depth. And that's what we had in the computer world as well, defense in depth. You have a number of lines. We had a 41st Brigade as the very first line of defense in Germany. And if the Russians would come, this brigade would hold them for a certain time until we could build up the next defense. And that same principle is adapted in the computer world. By the way, the logo on my shoulder is coming from the 41st Brigade, because I think that the cyber command is also the first line of defense in future. In Afghanistan, we had an insurgency war. You see here two pictures. One picture is how NATO was deployed in Afghanistan. Everywhere. We had units everywhere. The other picture is how the Taliban was deployed in the area. Not only Afghanistan, but also Pakistan and some other countries around. Oh no, it's only Afghanistan and Pakistan. But it is the deployment of the Taliban. And the enemy was amongst us. The enemy was around us. And that's what you see in networks nowadays as well. We all talk about the insider threat. We talk about the way we should protect our systems from inside out, intrusion detection systems. What is happening? I think, it is a saying, do not question when you'll be hacked, you are hacked. You just don't know. And currently we talk about the hybrid threat. The hybrid threat is a threat not only in cyber, not only military, but in the whole spectrum of power in this world. It's about what I stated earlier: diplomatic power, economic power, informational power, and military power. It is all working together. And yes, it might have already been started. We see it in the news regarding the influencing of elections in the world. The fake news, wherever it comes from. The Black Energy incident shortly before Christmas last year. The way we see some incidents developing right now. So, is cyber, is that a single threat? No, I don't think so. So will there be a cyber world war? No, I don't think so. Cyber will be part of a larger conflict. But within that conflict, you need a cyber component. There will always be a cyber component. And that's why we have to transform our armed forces. Hey, oh, there's a question. Great. Hey, I cannot hear you, and I cannot throw that far, so we do it in 2 stages. Yeah? It's a dangerous thing. Where is it? It's over there.
Never known. Be careful, we better hand it over.
All right.
I have seen a
Yeah, it works.
website some time ago
Yeah?
where you could see all digital tax being done at the moment. And I counted a whole lot of them. So there isn't a digital world war at the moment?
No, it's part of a larger thing going on. It is just one. There is also a diplomatic. There are diplomatic measures ongoing. There are economic measures ongoing. So it's part of a whole, and I don't know especially on which thing you point. I cannot judge it from here, but I don't think that it stands alone.
But then there is some sort of digital war going at the moment. It's just not only digital, but the digital war is going.
Every conflict at this stage has a digital component. I fully agree. Every conflict. We see it in a conflict with ISIL. They recruit people via digital means. We see it we have seen it in earlier stages in Georgia, 2008, where the networks in Georgia were taken down because so the Russians could deploy their forces. We've seen it in the Ukraine, where digital means were used. Whether that was done by state actors or non-state actors or to state-related actors, I cannot say. But we see every conflict has a digital component.
I'm referring to the conflicts that don't have a military component.
No, but
For example, I saw a whole lot of attacks from China to America. I don't know whether are personal attacks or government attacks, but they were there. Is that part of the civil,
Yeah, I don't.
digital war,
Let's.
or-
Okay, then something else. The point is that in the Netherlands we have defined an armed conflict, and it is also defined in what is called the Tallinn Manual, a document written by some experienced lawmakers who, and in the Netherlands we have a committee, the Committee for International Questions, who has judged in 2010 that an armed attack, a digital armed attack, is an armed attack if it is comparable to a conventional attack, which means that you need victims, you need wounded people, dead people, and you need disturbance of the society, a disrupted society. In that case, the government can decide that this is an armed attack. And only if there is an armed attack, we in the Netherlands are allowed to respond. And the armed forces are only allowed to respond after a governmental decision. So we see a lot of things happening, but those are not, and I repeat, those are not armed attacks. Those are incidents which might have a criminal background, a espionage background, a terrorist background, but not armed attacks.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Can the people around in the middle watch out so they don't get a thing to the heads?
so it stays complete. Good. So it all started with this. A statue of a soldier in the center of Tallinn. It was moved and Tallinn was attacked. And that was kind of wake-up call. It was not an armed attack, but the state didn't function anymore for a very short time. And based on that, we say, well, that after that, we had to decide what we should do. Because we as an armed forces, we have clear tasks. We are there to protect what you care for. And basically, we have three main tasks. You can read this. We defend our country, we protect the international rule of law, and we support civilian authorities whenever necessary on request of those civilian authorities. And we do that with these means. These are not ships, airplanes, or armored vehicles. These are floating, flying, and armed computers. These are digitized systems. And since we see that there is a threat to digitized systems, we need to protect those digitized systems, as you have to protect your systems, your telephone, your computer, network in your company. But we also see that our enemy, our potential opponent, does have those systems as well, and is vulnerable with those systems. Whoever that enemy may be, in what conflict there is. And of course, I have the most frustrating profession there is in the world. Because I learn, and I work now for 35 years in the armed forces, and I hope I have never to use my capabilities. Because I hope that there won't be a conflict. But we need to prepare. And in cyber, we did so by preparing a strategy in 2012, which we updated in 2015. And the updated strategy said we need to work on our cyber resilience, on our own protection. The enemy is amongst us. We need to work on cyber intelligence, because we want to know what is going on in the world. And we need to develop cyber capabilities as part of our military operations. And cyber capabilities in an operation means you need to protect yourself, you need to get surveillance and do surveillance and reconnaissance, and you need to be capable of using offensive capabilities. But if you want to do so, there are a number of preconditions. You need the right personnel, you need the knowledge, you need cooperation, and you need innovation. So, to start with personnel. It's not longer about that warrior in front here. It's about that warrior in the back there. You need specialists, and we all need specialists, so we all have the same challenge. You need to keep them, you need to find them, you need to keep them, you need to bind them, you need to provide them a challenging job. So far we manage, but I know that we do have a challenge and that we will have challenges. And that's not different from what John Fokker just mentioned here on stage earlier. You need to work on knowledge. And this is not different in a private company neither. You need to work on knowledge of all your personnel. Provide them basic skills. You need to have a number of people who have some inside knowledge, who know more than that cyber is a 5-letter word with no meaning, but know that cyber is something which is threatening your organization. You need to know something about the threat factors. You need to know something about the legal system around it, about cyber operations, about the layers, about encryption. And then you need experts, real techies who have in-depth knowledge of systems and who can build cyber capabilities, or cyber weapons, if you want to call them like that. And cyber has to become a part of every kind of education, every training, and every exercise, because it will be part of every mission and at the end of every conflict, every operation. And therefore, cooperation is key, because we don't work alone. We work with our allies. So we have to cooperate in NATO, we have to cooperate in the European Union, we have to cooperate with other countries on a bilateral basis by doing exercises together, by exchanging personnel, by doing trainings together. We have on a regular basis a cybersecurity insight course here in Amersfoort, where countries from all over the world take part. I myself, I'm the chairman of a group of cyber commanders with my American, my German, my British, and French colleague. But we also need cooperation in the Netherlands with the public sector, with the National Cybersecurity Center, with Foreign Affairs, and with the private sector, with companies like your company, with universities, with schools for higher education. If we cannot exchange experiences, we will not manage to make the Netherlands safer. Because at the end, it is our task to provide safety, but in cyberspace, it's a task for all of us. And last but not least, innovation. You need to be adaptive to a new world, fast-moving technologies, changing threats, other adversaries. And you need to be adaptive in personnel, in knowledge, and in cooperation. And I can give you many examples, but I don't think I'll have the time for that. So what I would like to do is to move to cyber operations. What are cyber operations? What does it mean, offensive cyber? It is part of a military operation. It's the employment of cyber capabilities with the primary purpose of achieving an objective in or by the use of cyberspace. So basically, in former times, it was our goal to prevent the enemy, the opponent, from using their planes, their vehicles, their ships. And we did that by shooting on them. So we could ensure that the enemy would do what we would like him to do, because that is the nature of war. Since we do not have ships, airplanes, or vehicles anymore, but moving, flying, sailing computers, we can also use cyber capabilities to prevent the armed forces at the other side using its systems. So that is our vision. That's the way we would like to develop. And basically, we look at a number of different kinds of cyber operations. We also only work, as I explained earlier, on the basis of a mandate by government. And to make it easier for the government to decide on what we actually do or how we operate, we developed this scheme. And the basis is always cybersecurity. It is the basis of the enemy, preventing the enemy of influencing your systems, and it is the basis below all operations. That is a passive action. I sit here, I protect myself. Then we have defensive counter-cyber operations. Being defensive in your own network. It's what you do as well. If you're attacked and there is someone in your network, you're going to hunt for it. And you're going to restore the integrity of your system. Defensive cyber operations. And then you can operate outside of your networks, in the networks of adversaries, in the networks where you're not allowed to go, only allowed if you have the right mandate, a decision by government. Offensive counter-cyber operations, you know that something is happening, someone is going to attack you, and you develop a counterattack. Some say that is part of a defensive operation. Yes, it can be, but you can attack as a part of a defensive operation. Cyber surveillance and reconnaissance. You want to know what's going on in your environment. I'll give you the microphone, but I complete this slide.
Yeah.
And then I get your question. So, the fifth is cyber combat support operations. We have a larger military operation ongoing, and we execute a offensive cyber operation in support of that operation. For example, you want to do an air attack, and we take out the radar system. And then last but not least, offensive cyber operation. That is a real cyber attack with a specific effect in support of a military, of an operation of a military commander. Your question, please.
Yeah, I have a question about the defense and the offense part. Let's say we are under attack, we are doing defense, and part of the defense will be offensive cyber operations. How would you prepare for that? Because you're not allowed to already go into systems.
No.
And so that takes, let's say, a couple of months' time to prepare yourself to have a really effective counter operation ready to go.
A counter operation can take time. Right now, time limit is a factor. And yes, we are not allowed to practice this already in peacetime before we are deployed. We're not allowed to shoot in peacetime somewhere on the street neither. But we are allowed to shoot on a shooting range. And you can practice this in a cyber range. So you can practice this in a contained environment. You can already train this. And that's actually what we do. And you need a lot of intelligence for that, so there's a whole process in between. It goes too far right now to explain that. But at the end, as part of a military operation, it will take much more time at this stage. And I don't know how technology will develop. If you can, yeah, in the back, some 15 rows in the back. I still think it's dangerous, but... Right. Can we have some more light, please?
In order to have reliable attack weapons, you would need zero-day attacks, vulnerabilities, I suppose. 0 days are vulnerabilities which aren't patched yet, so you can use them whenever you want. So, do you approve of the government placing, purposely placing vulnerabilities in products in order for you to abuse those vulnerabilities whenever you need?
My first task is to defend. My first task is to keep the Netherlands safe. Do I keep the Netherlands safe if I do place vulnerabilities in systems we use ourselves?
I don't think so, but...
No, I don't think so. So the question is easy. The answer is easy, no.
But how would you try to have reliable cyber weapons, since vulnerabilities... Yeah?
I already said, you might have mentioned, that I only mentioned floating, driving, and flying computers. My targets are military targets. My targets are military systems. Very specific systems. So, yes, I look at what is commonly used, and I look at systems which are commonly used, but if we do see a vulnerability there, we would open up that information. If we see vulnerabilities in specific military systems, which are not commonly used, then we might use those.
So
But the other thing is that you do not need 0 days to get into systems by default. Systems might not be patched, might still be open. There might be other ways of getting in, might be old systems. There are a lot of ways to get in systems. You might be able to get next to the system. You might have an insider. There are a lot of things which can be done. You don't have to rely on 0 days.
Okay, thank you. That's clear.
There's a question here in front. Be careful. Do you have a liability insurance? Okay.
Okay, my question. I imagine this picture is not at scale. So I wonder if you look at it in the money perspective or capacity perspective, how would the picture look like?
In the money perspective or the capacity perspective? Well, cybersecurity would be much bigger. Yeah, and the defensive part would be bigger as well. For sure. This is just a picture which depicts the different kinds of cyber operations.
Can you
The
give
definitions.
any feeling how it will look like, or is that secret?
No, it's, well, if you look at the Netherlands as a whole, you can take that, think cybersecurity, and put that somewhere between the point of the arrow on the right side. Yeah, and that's cybersecurity, and then maybe 1 millimeter is the rest, what we are doing. We have a very limited budget
Okay,
at
thank
this
you.
stage. Yeah. Question over here.
One of your tasks is to keep the Netherlands safe.
Yeah.
We know that a lot of backdoors are creeping into to hardware. Do you also see a task for yourself to do research on all kinds of hardware to
No.
see if there are backdoors?
No, I don't think that there is a responsibility for the armed forces to do that kind of research. First, that is a responsibility of the manufacturers. And basically, it is described in the National Cybersecurity Strategy who is responsible where. But it's the manufacturer, it's the user, and I think that the research community will do some research there. Fact is, of course, that we do research on vulnerabilities on our own systems. That's true. In front of you, you can. You don't throw it? Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I see cyber intelligence standing there. How much of it are you doing yourself or in cooperation with the MIVD?
We don't do it ourselves. It's just the Military Intelligence and Security Service who does it based on the law of intelligence services. And you might have, if you have listened carefully, you've listened that I said just cyber surveillance and reconnaissance and not mentioned intelligence. There's a question over here.
So.
International weapons trade is big business.
Yeah.
So are there, at your knowledge, any cyber weapons being developed by weapons exporters or producers? And is the military buying them?
Not that I'm aware of.
But there's a lot of money to be gained, so I'm really wondering.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to this slide. Because if you talk about cyber weapons or cyber capabilities, it is not just a piece of software, it is not just one vulnerability. What you need is a combination of people with the right skills, with the right skill set, with the right knowledge, with creativity. You need technology, you need to know how system works, how a system works. You need to know what, how you develop malware, or how do you get into a system. You need a lot of intelligence about the system you want to attack, because the system is changing with every update. And you need the right process to develop those kind of capabilities. You need to test it. You need to do a risk analysis. You need to ensure that you do not have any collateral damage. So you have to build in safeguards. It's much more complex than the way criminals develop cyber capabilities. And you need a decision mechanism on the planning and the whole decision cycle, which will go up the chain quite far. So you cannot just buy something, it's part of your whole organization. And that's the way we work. We're almost done. So, coming back to your question. The Defense Cyber Command works closely together with the Military Intelligence Service, but they do have the right to gather intelligence based on the law and intelligence services. We do only, before we have a mandate, we do the preparation, we do exercises, and we start maybe to develop small parts. Only after a decision of the government to use the armed forces, and with the right mandate and with the rules of engagement, we will start operating, we will deploy. And in the Netherlands, we do not deploy a cyber command under command of me. Our commander of the armed forces deploys forces, and I can provide him with a cyber unit. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. We had those questions. I did not cover them all, but I gave you a feeling of how I think that this will develop. So we went through that, and I think this is the most important slide of all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.